Here is the demo of what we are going to build. We can delete employee, we can add new employee, and we can also edit employee. So here we have Umar Mohammed, and we can delete this. We can also add new employee. Okay, let's add Umar Mohammed again and have the as the Gmail. Submit. You see, we added the employee again. We can also edit this employee by changing. Let's change this name a little bit, like Umar M. Then try to submit and see. You see, we have changes by editing this employee. Okay, this is what we will going to build in this tutorial together. Here is part of the architecture of our program. We have a user, and a user will send a request. The request will be accepted by the Tomcat, and the Tomcat will give the request to the dispatcher servlet. When it gives the request to the dispatcher servlet, the dispatcher servlet will use the handler mapping, a component called handler mapping, to find a right controller action for the request. So here inside our controller, it will find the right action for the given request, and based on this action, the controller will call function inside the employee service, and then at the end it will return the page, which is a view resolver we have here. So inside the employee controller, it will use some of function that we have inside the employee service. The function may be saving the employee, deleting employee, or getting employee by ID. These are some of the operations we will have inside the employee service. An employee service will implement the employee service interface. We will have employee service interface, and a class called employee service implementation will have all the implementation. Okay, so here is another architecture for the saving. Once we save the user to the employee controller, then employee service, we have employee repository, then to database. The same thing with the delete and edit, it will follow the same route. Okay, so we also have key operation. The key operation is we have save employees, list of employees, update employee, and delete employee, and we will going to implement this step by step. Okay, these are the technology used in this project: Spring Boot 3.2.5, Java version 17, Maven, MySQL database. We use MySQL database. We use TeamLeaf template, Spring Data JPA, Tomcat, Eclipse STS, and Bootstrap. Okay, so now let's build this together. Let's create a new project for our employee management system. Spring Boot project, create project, Spring Starter project. Next, this will connect to the Start Spring IO. Okay, now I already have previous project called Crude App, and I will change this. Okay, so let's name this employee management. employee management app, and I will change the description to employee management system tutorial. Okay, we will use Java version 17. Type, we will use Maven here, and the package, I name the package coding techniques, which is the name of this channel. Okay, so let's click next and add the dependency. We need team leaf, and then we also need the Spring Boot dev tool for the live reload. We need the Spring Web, it is a web application, and then we also need MySQL driver. We also need the Spring Data JPA for performing the database operation. Okay, these are the 5 dependencies needed for this project, and what we do next is click finish. Okay, so now import getting started. Okay, so before running this application, we need to have a configuration for MySQL database, and this is what we will going to do next. Here inside the MySQL workbench, we will create a new schema. We have this icon, create new schema. Once we click, it will give us the page to create the schema. We will change this to employees like this, then click on apply. So apply, finish. We have new schema employee, and if you click, you see we have no tables, and we will later create a JPA entity which will map to this new schema. Okay, inside our Spring Boot project, let's go to the application.properties to add the configuration for MySQL database. Application.properties, and first what we need is the data source URL. Okay, Spring data source URL equal to, this will be the URL of the MySQL DB. It's running on the local host 3306 JDBC MySQL / localhost 3306. Then we add the name of the database. This will grant us access to the employees database, but we must provide the username and the password. This will be the username and the password of the MySQL workbench that you create. Spring data source that we will provide username equal to, in my case, is root, and we will provide Spring again the password, Spring data source dot password equal to root again. In my case, the username and the password all is root. Okay, now we will have the JPA Hibernate configuration spring to JPA Hibernate. Here we have DL auto, and we will set this to update. This control the schema generation process. Okay, and we also have another which is login configuration. Let's add the login dot level dot hibernate s.sql. This set the login level for SQL statement to, we will set this to debug, which enable detailed login of the SQL queries. SQL equal to debug. Okay, also have one more, which is login dot hibernate dot type equal to trace, capital letter. Let's add this trace. Okay, so, and we will change this debug like this. Okay, it's better now. So on the login level hibernate type trace, set the provide detailed information about the types of the parameters and the result in the SQL queries. Okay, now we can run the application. Okay, so let's go to the starter class, employee management application, and then run a Spring Boot app. Okay, now we have our application started successfully at the port 8080. So the next thing, we will create a entity class for the employee. Okay, now let's create the entity class. Before then, let's create new package. Inside the model package, we will create the entity class. Let's create a class called employee. Okay, we will annotate this class with @entity to mark it as the JPA entity class, which will map to database. @entity, we have this. We will start with the field private long ID, which will be the primary key in the database. Private long ID. Okay, so to make it primary key first, we need to annotate it with @id and this will be generated automatically. We have generated value, strategy, generation type dot auto. Okay, so we'll have the other field which include the first name, private string, first name. We'll have private string, last name, and email. Private string, email. Okay, so we will generate a constructor. So let's go to sources. Here we have source, generate constructor. On the select all, I just want to generate a constructor with no parameter. We know the Java provide this constructor automatically, but in case of Spring sometimes we have trouble. We need to provide this for it to access. Okay, and then we also need to generate getters and setters. Okay, let's go to source again, generate. Here we have getters and setters for all the fields. Select all. Okay, generate. Okay, this is what we have so far, and the next thing we will do, we will have the repository, service, and the controller, that is for saving the user in the database. In this section we will create repository, service, and controller for saving user. So let's create new package and call this repository. Okay, and inside this we will create new interface, employee repository. Okay, our employee repository will extend JPA repository. By extending JPA repository, it will have access to the several methods for performing JPA operation. Okay, here we will pass the class employee and then followed by the long. Okay, so we will annotate this class with add repository so that it will be added to the Spring container. But even if we did not add the add repository, once the Spring sees that we have the interface that extends JPA repository, it automatically adds it to the container, which is the Spring container. Okay, now if we leave it like this, it's better without the annotation. Okay, so now let's have another package for the service. New package or sub package service. Inside this, let's create the interface. We will have employee service interface, and we are having interface inside the service. We will later have a class that implement this interface, which is employee service implementation will implement this employee service. That is the reason of doing this. We don't want our controller to be so dependent on the employee service implementation class, so that if we make a little changes it will affect the controller class. But if we have the interface, we will use the interface inside the controller class. Okay, and even if we make changes, it won't affect our controller, it won't break our code. Okay, so we will have the method for saving user, which is void save employee. If I set user, I mean employee, in this case employee. Okay, then we will pass the parameter employee. This is the first method we will have for saving employee. We will implement it inside the employee service implementation. Okay, so let's create another class. Let's create a class inside the service and name this employee service implementation, and let's cite MySQL like this, which means implementation. Okay, so this will implement the employee service. Implement employee service. Okay, add on implemented method, which is the method that we just create. So this is as simple as we will just call the save method to save the employee object that is passed here. Okay, we need to call the employee repository. Okay, let's start with add AutoWord. Okay, and then have a private employee repository like this. And let me take this down. Repository dot save employee. Okay, that is all we need here. Okay, it is a simple implementation. We use employee repository to save the employee, and we will call this method inside the employee controller. Okay, so now we will create new sub package controller. Okay, and let's create new class. We will call this employee controller. Okay, so inside the employee controller we will have the port mapping save employee, since that we create this method. Okay, we will annotate this with add controller face, add controller, so that it will be added to the Spring container. Okay, and we need a method, a post mapping method, and we will call this endpoint save employee. So we will also have the method public string save employee, the name of the method. Okay, so and then this will return a string. Okay, so before adding the value that we will return here, let's have the implementation phase. Okay, so now we will call the interface employee service. As I said earlier, we will not be using the implementation. Okay, let's call it phase. Let's have the @auto annotation, and then call the employee. Let's make it private. Employee service. We will talk to the interface. So we will have the employee service. We will access the method that we have save employee. Okay, then we need add model attribute. Employee will have this inside the theme leaf. Okay, employee okay, so let's add it here. It will map all the fields that we have to this model attribute employee. Okay, and it will return, let's set redirect to, let's name this employees. So now we will create the employees page later and have this endpoint. Once we save the employee, we want to be redirected to the list of employees that we have. Okay, so this is the post mapping that we have. And the next thing we will do, we will have a get mapping as well before going to the front end implementation. So let's have a get mapping, and let's name the path as register, the path which we will get the form. Public string, name this method registration for my case, and this will return a page, and the name of the page that I will create in the template is registration. Okay, so we need to initialize and the form by sending it to the model attribute. We can do this through two ways. Okay, we can add model attribute to this, add model attribute, add employee, and then have the employee like this. By doing this, we initialize our form with the employee object, and we can also do the other way. Okay, let me show you again. We will also have this employee. We'll have employee equal to new employee, okay, then we'll send this to the view using the model. So let's add the model. We did not add the model. So we use this to send it to the view. Model.add attribute. So let's add the attribute name and the attribute value. employee, and then the attribute value we pass this employee to here as the attribute value. And if we leave this like this is okay. So we initialize our form with the object employee so that it will populate this object with the values, and we save these using the post mapping when we send the submit, when we click on the submit button and send this post request. Okay, so let's save this, and the next thing we will do is that we will have a front-end implementation for our implementation that we have. Okay, so let's do this together. In this section we will have a front-end implementation for saving employee, but remember there is something we want to settle here. This employee service is an interface which implemented by the employee service implementation, so we need to annotate this with at service so that Spring container will manage this. Okay, so if we add the at service, Spring can manage this, but if we did not add the at service, it will not see this object and it will not manage it. So this is what we need to settle. Now let's go to the controller. We will create a page for this, the page that this register endpoint will return, that is the registration page. Okay, so let's go to the template. We will create a new HTML file. Okay, so let's create a new HTML file with the name registration and click OK. So now here we need to change the title to registration. Okay, and then we need to start the implementation, but we are using bootstrap, so we need to add the CSS link for the bootstrap. Okay, now let's go to the bootstrap. We will use bootstrap 5, and this is the current version. Here it will take you to this page. Click on the introduction bootstrap. Okay, we have here the CSS link. You just need to click on copy. Once you copy this, you will add this to the header. So we will start the implementation. Once you add this, click on save. Okay, so we will start the implementation. First we need a div with the class bootstrap class container. Inside this container we will have everything. We also, inside this container, we need a cat for the header and the body. The header is the h2 with a text registration, and the body is our form. So let's have this div called with a class cat, and inside this we will have two div. First one, we need a div for the cat header, okay, and inside this we will have h2 registration. Okay, and the second div is the cat body, which we will have a form div, and the class is cat body. Okay, so here we'll have the form, the input field, and the label. Okay, so let's have a form first. So the form will have the attribute for the which we will use to connect this to our controller method. First we need a th action. The th action will wrap this inside the teamleaf attribute, which is the at and the curly bracket. We will pass the URL which will call. So we have a safe employee and it will call this is the action URL. So let's go to the registration and add this. We also need a th object. We already know the th object is employee and it will be inside the attribute $sign with the curly bracket. So we need to pass the employee here, and we also have to pass the method. The method is pause simple. Okay, so let's save this, and now we will add the label and the input. So we need another div, and for this there is a class, bootstrap class, with the name form group, and then followed by mb3. So we will add the label first. Label. So for the first name, so remember this label have 4, so we need to pass the first name here and copy the first name as well. So when we copy this, we need to have this for the input. We need to have this inside the input. So we have th field. This will map the value that we have for this input field to our employee object, and the teamleaf attribute for this is star followed by the curly bracket, and we will pass the first name inside. We need to pass the type is text, and then the class for the bootstrap is form control, and then the ID is first name. Okay, so we just need to duplicate this for the last name. So last name, so we need last name. So we will just copy this and change the th field and then the ID. So the same thing for the email. Okay, email. So let me add this column. So let's change this to email. Make sure it matches the name of your object field inside the employee. So let's copy this and then have it here as well as here. Okay, this is what we have so far, and the next thing we will do is to have the submit button. Okay, the button type for the button will pass submit, and then we will also have a class that is a bootstrap class. For this is btn primary, that is we are specifying the color btn primary, and then we need to have submit here, so which we will use to submit the employee. We have employee first name, last name, email. We have this attribute save employee, then we also have the employee object method post. Okay, now let's save this and then go back to the controller. You see we will get this page that we just have at the register here. Okay, now let's check for it. Make sure you save anything, and then if there is any changes that we will do, we will come back. So let's see it face register. Okay, you see we have our registration. So the problem now, we need to have a break so that it can go down, and then we need to adjust it to center. It is so straight, it is so large as it. Okay, so go back to the registration. Okay, inside the container or on the top of the container we will have a break. So let's have this break, PR like this, save this, and then you see we have this now in beta. And to make this we need to reduce the length of the registration, and this registration text we need it to be at the center. First, let's solve this issue, and we have a class for this. The class is text center. Let's check if it is at the center. Refresh. Okay, now it is at the center. Okay, for making it small, now we need a div again. So we need to copy all these face, okay, from the cat. All we need to do is container, cut it, and let's have the div for this, and we will paste it inside. The class is, we have the code md6 followed by offset md3. Okay, so let's paste it inside this, save the changes, go back to the refresh. Okay, you see now it better. Okay, so let's try submitting the first name, last name, and email for the employee. Check in the database, but before then, remember inside the employee controller we have right that if we save employee, it will redirect us to employees, this endpoint, and currently we doesn't have the employee endpoint. Let's create one at get mapping. So we'll have employees like this. Let's have the method public. Okay, public string, and then followed by, let's name the method employees. Okay, and this will return a text. So to make it return a text, here we are using controller. We need to annotate this with @response body. Okay, and we need to return something like success here. Before later we will have the list of the employees. Okay, let's save these changes. Go back to we have first name. Let's write my name Aliyu, last name Sahabo, and we have the email as Aliyu Sahabo Adam. So when we submit this, it will take us to this success. That is the endpoint that we just created. But let's check the database to see if we have the user Aliyu, that is the employee. Let's refresh the database first. You see we have these tables inside the employee. We have this column. Okay, so now let's open this, the whole dish, and check whether we save this. It's saved correctly. Okay, so we have this with ID1, email, first name, last name. So our implementation works correctly as we need. The next thing we will do is we will have the implementation for the list of employees so that we can display the list. So this is what we will do next. Hi, in this section we will have backend implementation for the list of employees and later have the front-end implementation. So we need to get all employees that we have inside the database, and for this we need to go to the employee service. We'll add a new method. Okay, and this will return iterable. So iterable, and this will be employee object. Okay, and we will name this find employees. Okay, so this will have no parameter. Okay, so let's save this. Okay, inside the employee service implementation we will have the implementation for the new method we added. You see we have the public iterable employee find employee. Okay, so now we will talk to the employee repository dot find all. This will return all the employees that we have, and instead of returning null we just need to return this return. Okay, so that is what we have here in the backend, and in the controller we will also have the implementation. We will remove this @response body. We will not longer return a text. Now we just need to return a page, and the name of the page that we will create is employees like this. And we will also have to use the employee service to access the new created method. Here we will pass this list of employees to the model, so we need to pass the model as the parameter model. So model we will talk to the view model.add attribute, and the attribute will be employees. The attribute name employees, and the attribute value we will get the list of employees. Employee service dot, we'll call the method find employees. Okay, so now we are sending this to the view from our backend, which is our service. Okay, so let's save this and we will create the employees, that is the front end implementation, later. Okay, now let's have the front end implementation for the employees page, this one. So inside the template, let's create new HTML file and name it employees. Okay, finish. Remember, we are using the bootstrap. We need to provide the link. First, let's change this to employees. Okay, so let's provide the CSS link before writing the code. Here we have, let's copy it. Okay, and then add this. Okay, so the next thing we will do is we'll start writing the table, but before then we need a container like how we did before. Class container, and inside this we will as well have the cat, where we will have the cat header and the cat body. So let's have div class cat. Inside this we will have the cat header and the cat body. First, let's have the div for the cat header. Div class cat header. Okay, so inside this cat header we will have the text employees h2 have employees, and we need to have this at the center class. We will use the text center, and then we also need a link which will take us to the register from the employees. If you need to add another employee, you will use the link. So let's add this link, and the href will be, we need to add the URL inside this attribute, add followed by the curly bracket. So register. Okay, and we will have the add employee here, add employee. So the class for this will be btn primary. Okay, so this is all we need to do here in the cat header. The next thing is the cat body, and let's have the div for the cat body where we'll have the table. Okay, so the class name for this is cat body. Okay, so inside this cat body we will have a table. The table and the type of the table we will specify using the class. We will need a strip table, so we'll have this table followed by table strip like this. Okay, so we need a th and t body. We'll start with the t head. Okay, and t head like this. Okay, inside the th we will have the table row. So let's have the tr. Okay, so we will duplicate. Okay, we need to have th table header th. Okay, so we will duplicate this th for the first name, last name, email, and then action. Okay, here we will have first name, last name, and then email, and then we'll have action. So we have this, and then the next thing we need is the table body. So let's have the table body, which is t body. Okay, inside the t body will as well have the table row. So we need a tr. Okay, and inside this we'll have our employee. Remember, in the employee controller we are sending this to the view, which is the list of employee. So using this name, okay, employees. So when we go back to the employees, we need to iterate over a list of names that we have, that is a list of employee. Okay, so this will be start inside the th, inside the tr, which is table row, that is for each. Okay, I need employee. Inside employees we need to have the name. Okay, employees. That means for each employee, inside employee we will display it here. So we need the table data td. We need to duplicate this like 4 times because we have this first name, last name, email, and action. Okay, so for this let's have th text to display the name. We need to access employee first name, but inside this attribute like this, employee dot first name and let me duplicate this. Employee last name, and then we also have employee email. Okay, so this is what we have so far, and this table data that remaining is for the action, and we are not yet to the action for now. Okay, so let's see what we have. To access this, we need to go to the employees. Okay, so let's try. Here we have this employee. Let's access this again. You see we have Aliyu Sahabo and we have the add employee, but we need to have a break so that it could, we take it down a little. Employees. Okay, we'll have a PR here. Okay, save this and then go back to refresh. Okay, so now we fetch employees. The next thing we need, let's check this if it works as expected. So the add employee take us to the registration, and let's add another name like Yasir Yusuf, and let's have the Yasir Yusuf at gmail.com. Try to submit. You see it take us to the add to the list of employees. We have action here, and this is what we will implement next. Okay, so we will start with the update. So see you in the next. In this section we will have the backend implementation for update, that is for updating employee, and we will start with the employee service, where we will have a new method of type employee, and it will get the employee by ID. Get employee ID. Okay, and this will receive the long ID. Okay, so and we'll have the employee service implementation, implement add on implemented method, and here is the method here. Okay, so what we need to do first, we need the employee equal to, we will use the employee repository that here we will have the find by ID method, find by ID method, and here it is. We will pass the ID, and in case if we did not find the ID, we will throw an exception, that is we will use or else. We will use or else throw an exception. Okay, and the exception that we will use here is fetch not found exception. Fetch not found exception. Here it is. Remember, we have to have new here, new fetch not found exception, and here we will pass the entity name, which is employee d. Okay, so let's save this So we will return the employee, and here it is. Let me just copy. Okay, so here is the what we have. We will find the employee by ID. Okay, now let's go to the controller, employee controller, and we will have the implementation for the object inside the controller. So here we will use the get mapping. From the get mapping, we will get the ID. We will send a request, and the request will contain the ID. Okay, for now let's have get mapping, and let's name this update employee, ID. Okay, we will have this ID as a path variable, so we will access it using the method below, string. Let's name the method as well, update employee. Okay, and then we need a model because we will send to the view model, and then we also need the path variable. Here it is path variable of type long ID, which we will use to accept this from the request, and this will return the update form. We will have the update form which we will create during the form. The update form, let's name it update form. We will create this page later. When we find the employee, let's have employee. We will use the employee service to access the method find employees, find employee by ID. Okay, we have get employee by ID, so we pass this, and then we will send this to the view using the model dot attribute. So we need this as employee. Okay, so this is the what we have so far, and the next thing we will do is the implementation, front-end implementation for the update form, and you can see where we will send the request with the ID. Okay, let's do this together. In this section we will have the front, so let's add this, and this will have href equal to, we will have this link inside the attribute, this template attribute. Okay, so we'll have the update form. Let's go and check the inside the employee controller. Here is the update employee, so let's copy it so that to in arrow which will lead to the arrow. Okay, so we'll paste this here, update employee, followed by the ID. We will pass the ID here based on the user that or the employee that we have here. So we will use the ID of the employee that we want to update. So we'll have the id, and we set the id equal to, we'll have this attribute employee. We access the id as we have accessed the first name and the last name. So accessing this id, you make sure inside the employee you have setter, getter and setter for and the id and the id, and then that is what you must have before adding the id, because in some cases we neglect the id because sometimes in the program we were not using it. So let's go to the employees. So here we have set this id to the id of the current employee. Okay, and let's have this as edit, and we will also have something else, which is the class name. Okay, the class, bootstrap class equal to, let's have this as btn success. Okay, let's save this, and then let's try to check it here and see by refreshing this. Okay, now we have the edit. Okay, so and if we click here, we want it to take us to the update form. So now let's create the update form, new HTML file, update form .html. So this is similar to the registration. We will just add, let's copy all the registration. We will just add some modification for the update form. Okay, so in this case we will use the save employee. We are not using the put here, despite it is the update form, because we will have the id as well during the submitting, and this will update the current user or the current employee. So let me add this. Okay, and we don't need the label here for the id. We need this as id, and the type is hidden. We don't need it to be visible. Okay, and we will change this to update, and as well we need to change this to update as well. We also need to change this to update form. Okay, so let's save these changes. As you can see here, we provide the id. Since that we provide the id, no need to have the separate method like put mapping. When we try to submit the id that already exists, it replaces the id that it finds in the database. Okay, now let's save this and try to go to the edit. You see it takes us to the update form, and let me change this name like Aliyu Adam to see if it changes. Update form. Okay, you see Aliyu Adam changes. That is, our update is working as expected. Okay, so let's try to change for the Yasir Yusuf as well. Let's set that, let's set to Y, and then click on the update. You see it works as expected. So the next thing we will have is the implementation for the delete. In this section we will have the implementation of the delete. Okay, so now let's go to the employee service and have new method for the delete, and name it delete employee. Okay, so on this delete employee will receive the parameter ID. Okay, so let's save this, and our employee service implementation will implement this. So let's implement this method by clicking on the class add unimplemented method. So it's simple, we will just use the employee repository and then call the delete by ID. So we will have delete all, we will choose delete by ID, and here it is. Okay, and we will pass the ID. So let's call this inside the controller, save the changes. Okay, inside the controller we will have a method which is a action at get mapping delete employee. Delete employee if the ID using the @path variable. Based on the ID we'll find the employee and then delete. Public string delete, the name of the method, and then what we need to do is that we will have the @path variable. Let's just copy it from here. Okay, then this method will return it will redirect to the employee immediately after deleting. So and we will call the employee service dot delete employee and pass the employee. So this is all we need here. Let's save the changes and then go to the employee and add new button for the delete. Okay, so let's add this and then change this to delete employee. Delete employee, and we will not change anything here because it is getting the employee that we need to delete by ID. And for the button we need to change the color by calling btn danger, and this will change the color for us. Okay, so now this is a final implementation. Let's test this and see if it works as we expected. So let's refresh this. Okay, you see now we have this as edit. Let's change the text to delete. Save the changes. Refresh. You see we have delete here. Okay, now let's try to delete this user. So you see we have deleted the user. Let's add the user. Yasir Yusuf at gmail.com. Submit. Okay, so this is the final implementation and the end of this tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe this channel, and in the coming tutorial we will have the pagination and sorting. We will add the pagination and sorting to this implementation. Thank you for watching.